You can achieve a lot and still secretly hate yourself. You can be productive, responsible, dependable, even successful, and still live in a constant war within your mind. And from the outside, nobody sees it. People think you're doing fine. You smile, you function, you show up and handle your responsibilities. You might even be the strong one in the group, the reliable one, the person everyone depends on. Hey, let's call up Susie. Susie's got us. But internally, you're exhausted. Not because life is hard, but because your own mind never lets you rest. Expanders, welcome back. And if you're new here, my name is Aaron, and I help you change how you see yourself so that you can build the daily habits to handle real life pressure. So if that's something you want to do, subscribe, hang out with me. Have you ever been there where your mind won't let you rest? That space where every achievement gets minimized, every mistake gets magnified, every delay becomes proof that you're failing, every hard season becomes evidence that something is wrong with you. Or maybe you celebrate for 5 minutes, then immediately you move the goalpost again, living in a mind where nothing you do ever feels like it's enough. And eventually, you stop feeling emotionally safe with yourself. You stop believing your own encouragement and your own affirmations. You stop trusting your own potential, and you stop experiencing peace internally because your thoughts have become an environment of constant pressure. And the most dangerous part is that eventually, after enough time, you stop questioning the voice. You start identifying with it. You think, this is just how I am. This is just me being realistic. This is just me holding myself accountable. But what if the thing that is quietly destroying your confidence isn't life itself? What if it's the voice inside your own head, the one narrating your worth? Today, we're going to talk about something that most people never confront. Some of you are living in a mind that has been actively working against you for years, and you didn't even realize it. Because the most dangerous voice in your life is the one that sounds like you. And if you never challenge that voice, you can spend your entire life achieving externally while internally feeling emotionally inadequate. This is about finally confronting the internal dialogue that has been shaping your identity behind the scenes. Because whether you realize it or not, your mind is always listening to the way you speak to yourself. Last episode, we talked about self-abandonment, how confidence isn't usually destroyed all at once. I covered how people slowly disconnect from themselves through becoming who they needed to be rather than who they actually were. That was the mask, but today, we're stepping in front of the mirror because eventually you have to confront something uncomfortable. The voice in your head might not actually be yours. And if you never question where the voice came from, you'll spend your whole life obeying conditioning, calling it personality. And that's the trap. Some people think this is just who I am, when really, it's who fear trained them to become. It's who criticism trained them to become, who rejection trained them to become. And there's a difference, a massive difference, because one is your identity while the other is adaptation. And many have spent years confusing the two. Here's something that most people underestimate. Your mind is always listening. Always. To what you repeat, to what you rehearse, to what you say when nobody else hears, to what you repeat, and repetition becomes identity. That matters more than people realize, because confidence is not built in random moments. Confidence is trained quietly, psychologically, repeatedly. In fact, we become what we internally rehearse. Think about this. If every single day someone followed you around whispering, "You're behind. You always mess this up. You're not enough. You're too late. You'll probably fail." If someone was constantly around you whispering that, eventually you would break emotionally. You'd feel defeated, hopeless, small. But here's the uncomfortable part. Some of you already live with that voice. It's in your house. It cuddles up to you at night. The difference is it sounds like your own thoughts. And because it sounds familiar, you stopped challenging it and you started trusting it. But familiarity doesn't mean truth. And the thing is, a thought repeated long enough eventually starts to feel factual, even when it's completely distorted. That's important because our brains are constantly learning through repetition, not just through experiences, but through repetition and interpretation. This means that two people can experience the exact same failure and create completely different identities from it. I remember the story of two sons that had an abusive, alcoholic father. Both came up in the same environment, dealt with dad's mood swings. 20 years later, one of the kids is homeless, living on the streets, and life has beat him up. And the kid is asked by a stranger, hey, how did you get here? And the kid's response is, well, with a father like mine, how could I not end up here? Meanwhile, his brother that was brought up in the exact same home is a millionaire and has built a business geared around helping the kids that were in the same situation that he was growing up. And a stranger goes up to him and says, hey, you're very successful. How did you get here? And brother number two says, well, with a father like I had, how could I not end up here? Same event, different internal narration, different future. And that story is an example of just how powerful interpretation is. Your brain believes what you hear repeatedly, especially from you. And next thing you know, you're on the growth carousel. You know the growth carousel, don't you? All right, let me put you on. Thoughts become beliefs, beliefs become behaviors, behaviors become identity, identity becomes reality. That's why confidence feels impossible to build while self-criticism stays unchallenged. Because internally, you're trying to grow inside the very environment that keeps attacking you. An environment shapes your outcomes. That means there's someone watching me that is trying to build peace inside a mind addicted to criticism. There's someone watching me that's trying to build confidence inside a mind that is trained to only recognize flaws. There's someone watching me that's trying to build self-worth while constantly rehearsing self-rejection. That's emotional warfare, and most don't even realize that it's happening. Most people think confidence disappears because they failed. I don't think that's true. I think confidence disappears because of repetition, repeated criticism, repeated self-judgment, repeated disappointment interpreted emotionally, repeated internal attacks. Because your mind learns through rehearsal. What you repeatedly think, you emotionally practice. And what you emotionally practice starts feeling true. This is why some people can experience one rejection and suddenly spiral into they're not enough. Not because the rejection itself proved it, but because the rejection activated a story that they've already been telling themselves. The one that's living on the inside. The event itself wasn't even the wound. The rejection wasn't the wound. It just touched the wound. So could this possibly mean that it's time for us to stop obsessing over events and start paying attention to narratives? Maybe it's time for us to realize that our lives are being shaped by the meaning that we attach to our experiences. That's powerful. Because many people are not suffering because of what happened to them. They're suffering from the identity that they created because of what happened to them. And identities repeated long enough start to feel permanent. That's why healing requires awareness, because you can't change a pattern that you refuse to notice. Here's the part that might hit hard. Some of you are speaking to yourself in a voice that was never originally yours. Think about that. Who taught you how to talk to yourself? Who taught you how mistakes should feel? Many people inherited an internal narrator. Maybe criticism shaped it. Maybe comparison shaped it. Maybe it was rejection. Maybe it was a parent who constantly corrected you. Maybe it was school, failure, being misunderstood. Maybe it was constantly feeling like you had to earn love. And now, years later, that voice has moved in. It's got its feet up on your coffee table. It's become automatic. You fail once and immediately the voice says, of course. You make a mistake and instantly the voice says, I mean, you always do this. You start to struggle and suddenly the voice says, hey, what's wrong with you? And you think that voice is helping you. Call it accountability, discipline, being hard on yourself, tough love. But can I ask you something? Has that voice actually helped you feel safe becoming more? Or is it a constant reminder that you'll never be enough? Because there is a difference between accountability and emotional abuse. And some of you are emotionally abusing yourself every day, calling it motivation. You say, okay, Aaron, well, how do I know if that's me? Because no matter how much you accomplish, you still feel internally anxious, still restless, still behind. You still feel emotionally unstable because achievement can't heal an identity that's built on self-rejection. It ain't got the juice for that. You can achieve more and more and more and still feel secretly unworthy underneath it all. That's why external success without internal healing becomes exhausting, because now you're using achievement to try and outrun shame, and shame is always faster. This is where the mask starts getting built, because shame changes behavior. Shame says, if I'm not enough, I better perform enough. So then you overachieve, you overwork, over-explain, over-give, over-perfect. And it's not because you're confident, really it's because you're terrified of rejection, of being exposed, of being seen without the mask. And suddenly, boom, perfection is born. Boom, people-pleasing is born. Boom, performance is born. Not from confidence, but from fear. And eventually, you become exhausted because performance is expensive. It costs authenticity, peace, and connection. Because no matter how successful you become, you're still afraid that someone will discover that you're not enough. And this is why many people get trapped emotionally, because the world rewards performance. People praise productivity and they applaud achievement. So externally, the mask you're wearing gets reinforced. I look good in this mask. But internally, your real self keeps starving. That's why some people look successful publicly while privately feeling disconnected from themselves. The mask is being fed while the person behind it is disappearing. But here's where healing starts. Healing begins when you stop treating every mistake as proof that you're unworthy. Healing begins when mistakes stop becoming your identity. It begins when you realize that failure is feedback. And although I made a mistake, I am not a mistake. I don't identify with that. Although I was rejected, rejection is redirection, not worthlessness. And although fear is whispering around me, it's often evidence of growth, not proof that I should stop. And maybe the goal isn't to silence the voice overnight. Maybe the goal is to stop automatically believing it, to pause, to question it, to challenge it, to replace it, to finally ask the question, well, who taught me to talk to myself like this? Is the voice actually true? Would I ever speak to someone I love this way? Because confidence doesn't grow in criticism. Confidence grows in trust. And trust grows when you stop abandoning yourself mentally. Trust grows when you stop building an identity around shame and start building one around truth. Listen, maybe the reason you struggle to believe in yourself has nothing to do with capability. Maybe you've just been mentally rehearsing doubt for years. Maybe you've been training yourself to distrust your own future, distrust your own worth and your own voice. But the good news is that what was trained can be retrained. You can reprogram, you can hit iOS update and get a new software in you. And you are not trapped in the voice that you inherited. You're not doomed to repeat the same internal patterns over and over again. But healing requires awareness, honesty, and finally stepping in front of the mirror without the mask. So this week, I want you to challenge every thought that attacks your worth, your future, your identity. Not ignore it, but challenge it. When the voice says you're behind, ask, in comparison to who? When the voice says you'll fail, say, but what if I grow? When it says you're not enough, clap back. Who taught me that? Because awareness is the mirror. And healing stops the moment you stop automatically believing the voice in your head. So start paying attention to what you internally repeat. Notice what you assume. Notice how quickly your mind attacks the mistakes you make. Because awareness exposes conditioning, and exposed conditioning loses power. So maybe confidence isn't just about speaking louder, acting fearless, pretending to believe in yourself. Rather, confidence begins the moment you stop mentally abandoning yourself, and the moment your inner world becomes safer, kinder, truer, until eventually You don't need that old mask anymore. Can you see the mask clearly? Here's your chance to stop hiding behind it. Always remember that growth is a journey. It's not a destination. I'm in it with you. And I will see you in part 3.